Welcome to the Legacy Solutions Podcast, where we discuss the principles of mindset, management, and maintenance, and how each plays a pivotal role in building your life, your family, and your business. Thanks for joining in on the conversation with your host, Darnisha.
Legacy Builders, we're back for another episode of Legacy Solutions. And this week, I have another amazing guest. Camea Franklin is here with us, and we are going to dig in and talk about another management issue when it comes to your business, and that's record keeping. Welcome, Camea.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I already said your name, so I guess can you give us your full name and the name of your business?
Yep, my name is Camea Franklin Daney. I'm an enrolled agent out of Michigan, and my business name is Tax Divas LLC.
You said Tax Divas?
Tax Divas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tax Divas. Love it.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. We've been in operation roughly now about 14 years. Wow. We're a retail, tax business shop, which we service people in that area, but we service all 50 states. And our niche right now for our virtual CFO services and bookkeeping services are people in media, music, and creative industries. Mm-hmm. And so that's who we, service the most when it comes to those type of things. But, we service people in all industries, but that's who we typically particularly have a good handle on.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So what made you get into that? Is you just kind of fell into your lap? You just ended up with a lot of clients in that niche, or like how did that happen for you? Because that's an interesting specialty.
Yeah, I spent 13 years as an accounting manager for a television station. Well, it was a 5-station property, so it had a TV station, a network TV station, and also a local radio station, and it had 2 other businesses with it. So I ended up, I started as a credit manager, but I eventually became the accounting manager. I had to set up things, set up their whole accounting department because they had rolled out a new, at first they were just doing things like Home Shopping Network, which is kind of a different type of business model. And so we had to get them up to par with over-the-air TV accounting. And so I did that for like 13 years. And so I happened to have that as a skill, because I was able to interact with different people, account executives and agencies that handle TV bookings and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I do it. Yep, I'm also like a freelance I sing with a reggae band, so I also integrate that as well. So that's really the 2 reasons why I have those.
Hey, a woman of many talents.
Yes.
I love it. Now you mentioned you offer CFO services.
Yes, virtual CFO service.
Virtual CFO. I know what that is. Can you tell the good people what a virtual CFO is?
So I'm offering it for small businesses. So if you are in operation and you're making, I want to say under $500,000 a year, and you got to the point where you're profitable, you're making all this money, you may need somebody to show you, how your numbers look, how to do, have different KPIs, which are indicators that you can track your business and tell you, where you are profitable wise, where your cash is, where you may be bleeding out money, where you need to maybe put more resources into. So we provide those reports, and we kind of act as a support back office so that you don't have to hire that 40-hour-a-week person to do it. And so that's what we're there for.
So essentially you're an outsourced CFO. So you work.
Yes.
So help them translate the story that the numbers are telling them.
Correct, because it's very important. That's right.
That's good. So when it comes to CFO services, or even in accounting, what's one thing that you say is really important for business owners? One of the key things.
Well, I'm going to say, because we'll be talking about it later, but definitely record keeping. A lot of people with the internet and the way that things are, where people can join Instagram, and next thing you know, you're making all this money, or you become an influencer and you're making all this money, and then you turn around and you don't have your books together, and next thing you know, someone's sending you a 1099 with maybe $100,000 on it or $200,000 on it. What do? You owe taxes on that, but you can legally write off some of those expenses, that you've had related to it, but if you don't have the records, then you don't have a way to really prove it. And it's not like you could just, or you're not supposed to willy-nilly just put anything and estimate it on there if at all possible, So I say the first thing you want to do is make sure that your records in your back office is tight, or have somebody to do it. I always suggest people that just starting off, get you one of those mileage trackers, at least a mileage tracker has a place where you can record what you're doing on a daily basis. Then later on, you can go back and decipher which is what's personal and what's not personal, And so then at the same time, if you're the type and you're on the road and you're, buying things cash, you can snap a picture of that receipt. We can look at it later. We can like identify what it is, and try to come up with a plan or come up with your report so that we can have a good number to enter, when it's time to file your return. So that way you're not in trouble, because we've seen that a lot.
Yeah.
This is real. They say the IRS has hired, what is it, 80,000 people. Yeah. But I mean, they're not all for collections, but they are, ramping up their collections and their letters, and so you don't want to be one of those people that, you get a letter and then you just got to simply send some paperwork in to prove some things and you don't have it, So
Right.
that's what I always say. It's important.
That's good. And
Yeah.
actually, before we dig into that a little bit further, you've co-authored a chapter in our book, Small Business Tax Strategies. And so your chapter is on
Let your records tell your story. Yep. So it's all about record keeping, how long you should keep your records, how to start it, how to have a system in place. There's some tips in there that tells you, best practices, statistical information as to how many people get caught in audits, things like that is what is part of my chapter that I have in there. So yep, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's actually really good. One thing I noticed is as I'm talking to all the co-authors, a lot of the topics kind of work together, right? So you need record keeping, and it's important to make sure your books and everything's up to date and accurate, especially when it comes to like tax planning and making sure you're choosing the right entity for your business. So I think it's really
Right.
how they all kind of co-mingle in a good way.
Yeah, me too.
Co-mingle topics, and that way it's all cohesive for the business owner. So that's a shameless plug for our book that y'all need to go
That's
buy.
right.
But that's really good. When you were
Yeah.
talking, it made me think of everyone that's on Instagram telling people to hire their kids. And so I spoke with a client, and they had it's a new client, so they had a lot of excess profit for the year, and they wanted to hire the kid. And I'm like, okay, hold on, how much are you going to pay your kid? What's the purpose of this? You can't just say I want my kid, my 6-month-old, to pay them $12,949
Right. As
just
a model.
exactly. So have you seen that, or like how would you advise a person who's looking to like hire their kids or something like that when it comes to keeping?
Well, actually, I had that question myself just today. Somebody asked
Really?
me about hiring their child. The child is 15 months old. Okay. And so, I mean, that's all good and fine. You can hire your children, and, it is legal as long as they're actively doing work, first of all, in the business. And so, a lot of people think of creative ways. Well, how can I have my 15-month-old in the business? Okay, fine. If they are actually a model, and that did actually occur in the year in which you're trying to file
Right.
that expense, then yes, by all means, but you definitely want to have it recorded. There are options where you can possibly start like a fund for your child, start a IRA investment, or pay them some other type of compensation other than a wage, as long as it's compensation, and then have it as a deductible expense. But it definitely should be recorded, because especially when children are a certain age and you're paying the wages, they have labor laws that you have to follow. So that's another thing.
Right.
You
It
know,
doesn't
you
apply to
can't
you
just
again.
right. So you don't want to just putting it on there, and not knowing the laws in your state as it relates to children. So it's definitely important.
Right. Can't have your 3-year-old working in your warehouse packing your
Right.
hoodies to send off to
Right.
Amazon.
Right. You got to go to bed at 7.
That's good. I actually hired my daughter to do some work. And one thing that was important to me, I'm like, listen, you are not just gonna get paid just to get paid. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care tax deduction or not. Like, I'm raising a human being who I need to contribute to society and have good
Right.
financial habits. Like, that's not how this is gonna work. So I would just advise people, yes, you can get the write-off and there are benefits to it, but you're also raising a child as well. So
Right.
sis had a job description, she had a time sheet, and if she didn't work,
Right.
maybe didn't get paid.
Right. You have to record that, record the hours so that if it's ever discussed, is this really someone who worked there? Okay, no, this is when she checked in, this is when she checked out, or in the case of modeling, they went to said place at said time, you know what I mean? And this is what she modeled for, like if it's a modeling not a modeling contract, but if it's some type of photo shoot, okay, this is the place where we went to have a photo shoot, and this is the person who did it, and for how many hours,
Right.
and give them an actual rate, and not just one off time. You know what I mean? Like, is he continually going to do this for you? Are you hiring other people to, do you have a system in place?
Right.
So all of that is important.
Good. Yeah.
Right.
Are there
Yeah.
any other situations, deductions where you would stress the importance of record keeping, or anything that you've seen where clients may not have good record keeping?
Well, the first two, because there are a lot, but of course, when you're talking about mileage, even if you're a corporation, you want to keep contemporaneous records, and so that means you have to have an actual record. They specify you have to have what's the date, what time were you there, who did you speak with, and what did you talk about, and it should be listed somewhere. And so that's why I always stress again, some type of log that's automatic so that they can tell, because sometimes I was reading the other day where a person had a log, but they didn't have enough information, and it made the IRS look like you basically put that together all in one day. They don't want that. They wanted to see you doing it gradually as you go, because that's how it's supposed to go. So if you can't, there is a way that you can recreate your records. They call record reconstruction, and you can reconstruct your records based on whatever you have reasonably there. But that can only happen so much. You know what I mean? You could do that for 1 year, and then after that, you're supposed to learn your lesson, and then you're supposed to have proper records, So that's what I stress to people. Have records for everything. We can go ahead and we can reconstruct it. I can set you up. I can, do all your bookkeeping and get you caught up. But after that, it's up to you to keep that thing going, and we're there to help you, support you in that. But it's the mileage, it's the meals, I would say travel too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we talk about the meals for a second?
Yeah.
So any specific guidance on that? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert here. I have advised clients that if they're with a client or a prospective client or whatever the business meeting is, to write maybe who they're meeting with and the purpose of the meeting, and to keep that receipt.
Yes, for sure. Definitely for meals. And then, they have the thing ever since the Tax Cuts and Job Act, certain meals are 100% deductible, whereas others are only 50%. So you want to make sure you definitely have that documented as well, so that you can prove. But you definitely have to have who you spoke with when you're speaking about meals, because that's important, because where I used to work at, in the media industry, and where you have clients that you're having to, give tickets to and things like that, even though tickets are no longer deductible because they're entertainment, in most cases. But meals are part of that too. And so even when you're a corporation, such as like an S corporation or a C corporation, and maybe you're using your personal money and your business is reimbursing you, want to have an accountable plan that talks about that. But you still have to have the receipt to talk about the date, the time, the name of the client that you spent the money on, and the reason for, what you spoke about. And you want to keep those receipts. Yep. And if you just want to snap a picture, even if you don't have a mileage tracker, you don't have an app, just put it in your phone camera. You know what I'm saying? I don't care, make it as easy as possible for you. But as long as you have a record of it, that's definitely, that's something that I stress so much. People probably get tired of me saying it, but I just try to make it easy as possible for you to have your records, so that, because a lot of people don't keep, for some reason, QuickBooks and different bookkeeping systems like that seem easy, but for people that don't do it on a lot or on a daily basis, it's not as easy as you think.
Right.
And so they are, or either, QuickBooks records whatever you have in your bank, but it doesn't know what that is. It's trying to determine what it is based on the name of the place or based on what they think it is. But when it comes down to it, the IRS still gonna want that receipt, especially, depending on the amount. So it's definitely important.
That's good. You mentioned travel.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it because we want to give them something to, just a little taste. Yeah, so they can read. But travel is something as well that you've seen clients.
Correct. Yep. So, I know a lot of y'all, do a lot of business in Miami, and you do a lot of business out the country, and, go back and forth to Las Vegas and things like that with, we go to conferences too there. I'm sure you've probably been to conferences there, but you just want to make sure that you have your receipt, because especially if it's a mixed use, trip, you want to make sure you identify clearly the business use, and clearly the personal use, so that it can be properly deducted.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you so much for sharing. So any words of wisdom that you want to leave us with? Anything that you want to add before we wrap up?
And no, just be aware that the IRS is a federal organization, and they are, they have systems in place and checks and balances, that are there to help them determine who is doing tax evasion, and with the different things that have occurred, we have a lot of fraud surrounding the PPP loans, a lot of fraud surrounding the EID loans, and all this free money that they were handed out a couple of years ago. And so that's another reason why they've ramped it up. We got these 1099Ks coming that may or may not be issued correctly. Hopefully they have it correct to where they're not issuing personal. But what I'm saying is, this is going to be a time where you may get a notice where you would not have gotten it in prior years, because of these different things. And so you want to have your records and some documentation that you can send in if they ever were to come to you, because I know there are a lot of people there that actually have bona fide businesses and have bona fide things that they can claim, and they're just trying to do the right thing, but then they don't have anything to back it up, and they end up on, and so I just want you to, keep that in mind when you're doing your businesses.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's really good. So one more question. Is there a certain amount that you would recommend or that you suggest to your clients to keep their receipts for purchases?
Oh, I tell them to keep all receipts. I mean, of course, you have the per diem, which if you're like an S corporation or corporation and you're allowing your employees, if you have employees, a certain per diem amount, like $50 or whatever per occurrence. I mean, maybe, but I suggest, and the way that I've always been trained and I have always done, is keep every receipt, even if it's under $5. I mean, it's, it's negligible. If you don't have it, that's fine. We can try to, work something or get something together to have things that are lower. But if you can keep every receipt, keep every receipt. That's just me.
Okay.
That's what I suggest.
That's good. Camea, that was so good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Record keeping is something that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm like, I resonate with this one. So thank you so much for your time. How can people get in contact with you and with your business? You said you have a physical location in Michigan?
Yeah, we're in Detroit, Michigan. It's at 7333 Puritan. near the Avenue of Fashion, between Livernois and Wyoming. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, as Tax Divas, or Camea Franklin EA. Then I'm also on LinkedIn as Camea Franklin EA. TaxDivasDetroit.com. And then I can be reached at 313-757-6829.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
again.
you. No
All right,
problem. Have a
family.
good one.
Thank you, family. We'll see you again next week on Legacy Solutions Podcast.